live my society. 45 seconds. Wait a minute. Okay. All right, cool. 29 seconds.
You need water?
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah. Yeah.
10 seconds.
All right.
9, 8, 5, 4, 3, 2.
What's going on, PBM family? Another Sunday, another assessment. Today we're going to be talking about Herbert Gilbert Jr. out in Georgia, who was killed by Thomas County Sheriff's Department while serving a search warrant. Of course, you know I got to bring on experts. I'm going to have expert from down in Georgia who attended the post, who's a sergeant. He was experienced as a sergeant in the SWAT team, so tactics he's very familiar with. So let's look at the video and let's break it down.
He's not here. 419 Magnolia. Hey, Thomas, need PD in route as well. Got one shot. Put it in reverse, man. I saw it. What do you think I did? They're on the way. Get back to your house, ma'am. Ma'am. You need to go back in the house. Thomas, I need as many PD units as we can get for crowd control. I got it from there.
4 units, 33 trips.
128 times.
28.
We need 1078, please.
24. 24, 76.
I seen everything.
$42. How far y'all out?
Any unit closer. Washington State.
Sorry, you almost ran him over.
No, I watched. I got everything on video.
Y'all clear out the street! Y'all clear out the street! Clear out the street! Clear out the street!
All right. All right, Shane. You saw the video now. I like to try to reach out to my resources, and I know that you are in Georgia. You was a sergeant on the SWAT team, so tactics you're very familiar with, correct?
Yes, correct.
All right. So
That is correct.
you guys all get certified under a post, correct?
Mm-hmm. That's correct, sir.
So the training is pretty universal for the whole state. I know from state to state, the criteria is given by the state, and the officers within that state follow the criteria, and pretty much the training is real similar to each other within that state.
Correct. It's exactly the same.
Okay. Now, when you look at this as a tactical guy, what do you see?
First of all, I didn't even hear an announcement of a search warrant. The camera is queued up. It showed one officer into the dwelling, and it looked like there was another officer inside already. One was standing with some of the, subject's family. Another one ran to the back. And then all of a sudden, I heard cue to sirens, and then it looked like he ran out the back door. And as he was running out the back door, there seemed like there was another officer that had a truck pulled up in front of his truck and pushed the truck to the back, to the side. And as he kept pushing the truck all the way over to the east or west corner, then another officer proceeded to pull his weapon and start shooting into the windshield and also to the side mirror. I've never seen anything like that in my life, ever.
Okay, yeah, because I'm just wanting to make sure, because the department I was 3 different law enforcement agencies, and not one time that you are authorized to shoot into a moving vehicle like that, especially under these circumstances where the officer steps in front of the vehicle. It's sad. I remember going through the training, and the instructor said, "It's sad that I got to tell you guys, right? Don't stand in front of vehicles. When you stand in front of vehicles, you lose. You cannot physically stop a vehicle. So don't stand in front of vehicles." People like to stand in front of vehicles, and then there's no other options to use deadly force. And this is the words from the instructor. We're here to save lives at all possible. When we take a life, we try to use all our options. Standing in front of a vehicle gives you no other option, so don't stand in front of vehicles. And he says, I hate to see these videos where officers running right in front of the vehicle with their gun up. Police, stop. You don't have options.
Right.
You will die if you stand in front of a vehicle. Yep. So it's like creating the use of force scenario. We don't want to create that. Let it come to us. So my training was never stand in front. What about you guys down there in Georgia?
Yeah, correct. Never ever stand in front of a vehicle, because as you mentioned, you'll always lose. You're supposed to stand on the side of the vehicle. You'll give commands, verbal commands, or what have you. And if the person decides to take off, then you're authorized on the search warrant under my to get in your car and proceed on the chase. You're not authorized to jump in front of a vehicle and start shooting. There was no imminent threat or danger to the officer at that time. None at all.
Yeah. And what about the ramming? I noticed that he got in the vehicle and they started ramming. I've never had, the only time I've received training where you was actually allowed to ram a vehicle is in undercover work. And the undercover officer, was actually taken, and he was abducted, and the subject was trying to flee with the undercover officer. I was always told to strap up, because I worked undercover. They said, if you ever get taken in a vehicle, strap up, because we're going to ram the vehicle. We're not going to let you get away. That's the only time I've ever seen the authorization to ram a vehicle outside of the pit maneuver and the vehicle pursuit. Anything different down in Georgia?
No, no different at all. There was no authorization to ram the vehicle at all. Pit maneuvers had to be authorized. You have to call back into the station and let them know you're going to do this move. It had to be cleared out. I think it was 2 or 3 blocks before we initiate the move. What I've seen here, which is I've never seen it before in my life. You don't start ramming a vehicle just to ram a vehicle. That didn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And all this was in reference to an informant who gave information that the subject was actually selling cocaine and marijuana. So I look at these incidents, and a lot of people like to say, well, let's look at what happened beforehand to try to give a true assessment. I want to clarify that because a lot of people don't understand the procedures, the culture, the policy, the procedures, the protocols. When an officer decides to use deadly force, right? When he has his mind, a life is about to be taken at that moment he pulls the trigger, right? Does it matter what happened beforehand?
As far as why he
Because
pulled the
a lot
trigger?
of people want to
Yes,
decide
if he
if the
engaged.
officers. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Say it again, Joe. I'm sorry.
Because a lot of people want to hear the whole story to justify the use of deadly force. And what I mean by that is what the subject did that led up to the officers shooting him. And the training that I always received, it didn't matter what happened. Beforehand, it matters that the threat level rose at that time you made contact with the subject, and there was no other options. And to save a life, you had to use deadly force. So what happened beforehand absolutely has no bearing on the officer using deadly force at the time he used deadly force.
Correct. It has no bearing at all. If the person engaged the officer, had a weapon, and it was an imminent threat and imminent danger, you have to protect yourself or a life. That's the only time you're authorized to use deadly force. Anything else, in my consideration, is called murder. That's what it is, plain and simple.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that because a lot of people, and I do a lot of talking all over the country, and we discussed police brutality, we discussed excessive force was reasonable, was not, and you get a lot of questions on, but what happened beforehand? And I'm always breaking it down. When the officer decided to use deadly force, what led up to him using deadly force actually has no bearing on the officer using deadly force at that time. Like, for example, they want to hear, well, the person just killed 5 people. So if the officer made contact and he used deadly force, it was justified. If the person killed 5 people and then the officer arrived and the person put down the gun, the officer can't use deadly force because within policy at the time that the officer decides to use deadly force, there's certain elements that have to exist. And those elements has nothing to do with what happened prior to the officer's arrival. So I try to educate the audience by letting them understand our policy and procedures, our protocols on how we do things. So I just want to make sure that in Georgia, you guys don't, it's pretty universal deadly force. Things change per state, per locality, but deadly force is pretty universal. You know, your life or the life of someone else is about to be taken, and there's no other options but to use deadly force. Correct?
Exactly. And in this case here that we saw Mr. Gilbert, that's correct. And in this case, Mr. Gilbert, there were other options. There's other options could have been made. And I don't see why the officers did what they did. There's so many ways you can apprehend a subject without ramming a vehicle, without shooting to the window. I don't know the background, but we don't know if he's used to carrying weapons, if the person had any criminal rap sheet. I don't just see a reason why they would ram a vehicle and start shooting into the vehicle. Different story, they got a report that the person was armed and dangerous, or there was an active shooting at that time going on. But still, at that time, even if it's an active shooting, if the person surrenders, drop their weapon, put their hands up, we're not authorized to shoot or kill anyone.
And I'm glad you made that point because a lot of people don't understand. It went to a grand jury. The grand jury pretty much cleared the officer. Why do you think the grand jury cleared the officer? Do you have any, just right off the top, do you think you know why that the, all right, go ahead, explain.
Correct. Remember, when you were the grand jury, the case is only presented from the district attorney's eyes. He's getting what he's hearing from the police officers, and it's just presenting basically a one-sided case. It's not, the grand jury is not at times present facts or what have you. They're presenting their version of what happened, and the grand jury only has to go on their version. They don't get a chance to see the deceased, the suspect's potential suspect, version, you only hear one side. So based on maybe that one side, events could be misconstrued. How many times have we seen grand juries, cops get away or what have you, and it's just one-sided. You're not privy, you're not led in to the grand jury. Most of the times, grand juries are not represent the community that you and I live in. So there's a lot of reasons why they could have cleared them. Plus, it was Thomasville, Georgia, or Thomas County, which is
Yeah.
the demographic is 99% Caucasian. That's just it.
Right. Okay. I'm glad you said that, because I pulled the records from the courts, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but you tell me, right, listening to the statement, you could just raise your hand, you could cut me off and address every time you see a problem when you start talking about a grand jury proceedings. Understand something, that the DA goes in there and he presents was supposed to be a probable cause hearing, and he's supposed to present probable cause to get an indictment. So that's it.
Right.
There's only one story. One story is being told, and if the person telling that story doesn't highlight certain elements, then the grand jury doesn't get a whole story. So according to court documents,
Correct.
I'm going to read to you. Just stop me when you see a problem. It says Agent Adams moved to the front vehicle. All right, Mr. Gilbert to stop and get out. Agent Smith was attempting to get to the driver's door to get Mr. Gilbert out, or be in a position where if he jumped out, he can chase him. Now,
Stop.
you understand? You understand what I just read?
Right, exactly. Say that first part one more time, Joe. I was putting my hand up.
Agents-
He was reading. I can't. You said stop. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, say stop, right? I was waiting for you
Right.
to say stop, because I seen a problem with the first sentence. Agent Smith moved to the front of the vehicle, ordering Mr. Gilbert to stop. There you go. Go ahead. Tell me what you think.
You do not jump in front of a vehicle.
Yeah.
You do not jump in front of a vehicle. There's no train that says, okay, pull out your gun and jump. Point one. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, and I'm glad, because we gotta break this down to the people, because they don't understand. All they see is officers out there trying to do a good job, and deadly force was used. And you hear the guy was running from police, who was the suspect of someone dealing drugs. I get that.
Mm-hmm.
You're not supposed to be dealing drugs. You're not supposed to run from the police. But in society, we have a small percent of people who don't follow society's rules. But then, to counter that, we have law enforcement officers that we train. We give them procedures and policies, and we say, this is what you need to do to apprehend those people who don't follow society. So I'm definitely glad that you made that point. Agent Smith was attempting to get let me see where I was at. Agent Smith was attempting to get the driver's door out. Okay, I went past that. Okay, let's see. At the time, Agent Smith realized
driver's door out. Mm-hmm.
Yes. You see the problem
I'm
there,
sorry,
right?
I hate to cut you off again. There's a problem.
Yeah, go ahead.
Why are you going to try to drag a person out on a moving vehicle? The vehicle is moving. Why are you trying to grab the door? With you Superman? You're going to hold the door back? You're going to hold the car? That's not according to procedure. Who does that? You could rip your arm off. That doesn't make sense at all.
When I first saw that, I said the same thing. I said, what is he doing? Like, he's doing everything that the instructors in class said not to do. Like, you cannot physically stop a vehicle. Like, there's certain reasons why they tell you don't stand. Don't grab the door. What are you grabbing the door for if the guy's moving? All you're going to do is get dragged. Like, there's certain things that you just should not be doing. All right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. At the time, Agent Smith realized that Mr. Gilbert was trying to get out towards Gilbert's right side, and exit right to his left was obstructed by the utility pole. Agent Smith was located between both the vehicle and was concerned that if Mr. Gilbert accelerated forward, he would not be in a safe position. Exactly. That's why you don't stand in that position.
Again. You don't. Exactly.
Yeah. So I can't even begin to understand his mindset of his positioning. It's a tactical position when you actually trying to apprehend someone fleeing. It's supposed to be safe for the officer. There's certain positions that you train not to stand in because you'll get yourself killed. And he's standing in every position that they tell you not to stand in. Right? Would you agree with that?
I totally agree. When you engage in a suspect, it's called cover and concealment, not jump in front of it. It's cover and conceal. Not show yourself. Here I am, run me over. That was crazy.
Now, did you realize when the shots was actually fired? Did you notice that?
When I think when he drew his weapon, he automatically started shooting. I believe
Right.
I might have to read it again, but I think as soon as he drew, he started shooting. I didn't hear no verbal commands. I didn't hear anything.
And the reason why I'm bringing this point up, because at the time an officer pulls the trigger for the audience, right? The officer has to establish, right, that his life or the life of someone else is in danger at the time. The vehicle was actually
Correct.
The vehicle actually backed up, it stopped, and then he started shooting, and then the vehicle moved forward. It goes pretty fast, so I slowed it down for you. I'm going to play it. It's real 10 seconds. Check this part of the video out.
Okay.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
Right? The first
If
shot.
you notice, Joe,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. The first shot.
No,
was a little
go ahead.
loud. Sorry
I
about
want
that.
to hear what you got to say.
As soon as he drew the weapon, anybody in their right mind, the first time you start seeing bullets, you're going to back up, you're going to move. It's normal for the car to get out the way. When sharks are coming for you, I'm going to duck, I'm going to run, I'm going to back my car out, I'm going to try to drive away. It was a normal reaction. It wasn't a need for him to even start shooting into that vehicle, Joe. It wasn't necessary.
Shane, you are 100% right. I tell people this all the time. It's not that I'm bashing law enforcement. I'm singling out bad policing. Bad policing gets people killed. And this is exactly bad policing.
Right.
And the reason why I believe, right, that the grand jury didn't come forward, because what we hear, what me and you are going back and forth on and breaking it down on the tactics, right, they're not privy to that. Nobody's giving that as probable cause. Because if I was the actual DA presenting a case to the grand jury, the first thing I want to do is bring their trainers as witnesses of the grand jury. Officers put themselves in a situation where they had to use deadly force. We don't train our officers to stand in front of vehicles because you'll get killed. Somebody's death is going to be taken, either the officer, right, or the subject inside the vehicle, because the officer's going to have to shoot because he just put himself in a deadly force, use of force situation. So you've never heard that argument up until the George Floyd. That's the first time I've seen so many instructors, academy instructors, veteran officers, everybody was coming out and they zeroed in on the tactics. That jury had the opportunity to hear something that no other jury ever hears. Officers are not trained to do that. All you hear was the officer was in a life-death situation. He had to use deadly force because his life was in danger. You don't hear what led up to that danger, which is very important when we start talking about practices, procedures, how officers respond to these particular incidents. You understand what I'm saying?
Correct.
Do you agree? Do you disagree?
Well said.
Is there anything you want to add to it?
100%. Yeah, no, I agree 100%. There's no way. And tactically, it was done wrong. The way this person was executed, it was done wrong from beginning to end, Joe.
Yeah. Somebody asked, can we play the video one more time? So I'm going to show the video one more time, just to get them, just to get them another look, and then we're going to take some questions from the audience.
Gotcha.
Here's the video. Okay, so you see the problem that I have? The guy backs up. It was 8 rounds total. The first rounds, right? About 6 or 7 rounds was shot at this vehicle before the vehicle actually started to roll forward. Then the vehicle passes the officer because he went to the side of it. Then he shoots on the side of the same officer. You got one officer, got multiple people there. One officer fires a total of 8 rounds. And this particular officer, if you look at his positioning, right, it was all wrong. You being a supervisor in charge of the SWAT team, would you have a major problem with this officer's work and how he responded?
Huge. Major problem. He didn't take cover. He jumped in front of a vehicle. When do you ever jump in front of a vehicle? That's something we never trained to do. Never.
Yeah. Well, Sarge, thanks a lot, man. I'm going to see if there's anybody that want to ask us some questions, and then we'll just close it out from there. Anybody got any questions that you want to ask? Here's your time to have a honest, unbiased conversation. Don't get it twisted. Just about we zero in on bad policing. If the officer actions is consistent with the procedures policy, we'll be here explaining that as well.
All right, so we have a question from Constitutional Auditor. You both sound like cops. Can either of you tell me why the police have no idea what the elements of crime are?
Why we both sound like cops? Because we spent a long time in law enforcement. So that's like kind of a get me. Why now? No. We both sound like cops, right?
Yes, this is on YouTube.
Right.
From Constitutional Auditor. You both sound like cops. You got that?
Oh, we got that part out the way. Would you agree with that, Sarge? I mean, we spent a lot of years in law enforcement. So we understand the culture of law enforcement. So go ahead.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Can you either of you tell me why the police have no idea what the elements of crime are?
He said why police have no idea about the elements of crime. I can't speak for every 800 and something law enforcement officers, but I can speak for myself. I've never had a problem understanding the elements of crime. I've actually done well. I had a case that went up to the Supreme Court, and the justices says Officer Ested does know the elements of crime, and we're going to uphold his police actions. I know we have officers that don't, but I only can speak for myself. Sarge, you got anything to add to that?
We always know the elements of a crime. Every officer is trained to know the elements of the crime. The problem is, do you use it? Do you use your training? Do you choose to ignore it, or do you use it? And many times we find that ones tend to abuse it or obscure what actually happened. So we all know the elements of a crime. We know the elements of having probable cause. We know the elements of having reasonable suspicion. We all know that. But it depends on that particular officer if he decides to use his training or not.
That's a really good response, because a lot of people think that because you see officers not following the Constitution, not following the laws of arrest, that you don't know it. And I tell people all the time, you had to pass that to get out the academy. Once you get out the academy, it's that individual officer's decision whether to use it or not. I mean, you got some people that just don't, and that's why we have billions of dollars in bad policing being spent. But everybody has to know there's a mandate by the state that says before that officer leaves the academy, he has to pass this test to acknowledge that he understands the elements of a crime. Any other questions?
That's correct. And also,
go ahead.
I'm going to say, in order to get out of academy, there's a series of tests. Batteries of tests, elements of a crime, constitutional law. There's a battery of tests you have to pass in order. Every 2 weeks, you got to pass in order to go to the next level. If you don't, you flunk out and you're gone. It's not a one test pass all. You got to continue to go through levels. And at any point you flunk, you're out of the academy. That's how serious it is.
Yeah. You got another question?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
All right, the next question is again from Constitutional Auditor. Is deadly force authorized for driving without license plates or failing to yield at an emergency vehicle?
Okay. You must be kind of a new follower, and we break down the elements of deadly force, right? Deadly force, and I'm gonna break them down to you. And this is pretty nationwide. Sarge worked in a different state than I worked in, so I traveled to Afghanistan with 119 officers, all instructors, and we had to build a police training program. And one of the jobs that I had to do was the deadly force. And that was very consistent throughout the United States from state to state. The elements, your life or the life of someone else is about to be taken and there's no other options to prevent that life to be taken, an officer is authorized to use deadly force. Remember that. So the license plate, the air fresh, none of that. That has nothing to do with when an officer use deadly force. Officer has to have a situation to where there's no other options and I have to pull the trigger to either save my life or the life of someone else. That's the only time an officer is authorized to use deadly force. The only time. Sarge, you want to reiterate?
Yeah, no, absolutely right. You have to be in imminent threat of danger, or a third party is imminent threat of danger. Someone's coming after you with a knife. Someone has a weapon, maybe a bat or a baton, trying to strike you in your head. A person is about to get shot. A weapon is drawn. Those are reasons to use deadly force. There's nothing else. There's nothing else, Joe. I mean, you covered it very well.
Thanks. Any other questions?
Okay, this isn't a question. This is more so of a statement from Brad Edwards.
Mm-hmm.
Let me show it real quick. Okay, Brad says, many cops hope every day they get to shoot someone. Fact. Itchy fingered police, nothing new here.
I mean, that's how you feel, then that's how you feel. I don't know what to say about that. I've worked with guys who don't want to take a life. Taking a life is a big thing for a lot of the guys. Yes, I'm quite sure that there are guys out there like that, but for the majority of the guys I work with, I was a part of a specialized unit, and nobody really wanted to have that on their backs as far as taking a life. We actually took pride into not causing serious injury. And we've done search warrants. One of the things that we've done that I don't see now, and Sarge, you tell me, when we did search warrants, we would always have an ambulance staging right at the scene. So we didn't have to call somebody to wait, because time is of the essence when you're talking about somebody being injured. We're having a stage right down the block when we did this search warrant. So if anything happened, we can hurry up and get them there. Because I took pride taking 10 guns off the street within 1 month. And when I did it, I was like, and I didn't take one life. So that was more of a badge of honor not to take a life, because I proved that you could do the job without taking a life. Now, don't get me wrong. There is situations where you have to take a life. But some of these situations that I've seen, life shouldn't have been taken. And this is definitely one of them.
Right. I totally agree with you, Joe. At the end of the morning briefing, we had a statement. Everyone gets home safe, including the suspect. Everyone gets home safe and sound with no injuries. That was our model. So the goal of trying to take a life, you may have a few out there who has that. You know, we've seen bad situations, but the majority that I've known, I've been around with, and I'm speaking for myself, you never think about that. I mean, that weighs on your conscience. That hurts you, to hurt your family. That's the furthest thing. Let's get home safe and sound, and so we can see another day, and also the suspect can see another day.
Yeah. What's your next one?
Okay, so the next one is from, oh wait, why did I just put up? Police brutality. Yes, we have new shows coming up this week, guys. New shows in the works. All right, this is from Clarence. Isn't the grand jury made up of ordinary citizens?
Yes, grand jury is made up of ordinary citizens. A jury is made up of ordinary citizens. And me personally, and Sarge, you let me know how you feel on this one. I think that they should really have an understanding on police practices, police procedures, police protocols, because when they sit there, they need to understand what an officer can and can't do, what he should be doing. And I think it's easy to be manipulated if you don't understand what an officer can and can't do. Most people will look at this incident and go, well, the officer had to do what he got to do, had a split second. It makes a whole difference when you're explaining that the officer shouldn't have been in front of no vehicle. It makes a huge difference when an officer is instructed to say, look, don't stand in front of vehicles. So now you stand in front of vehicles and you take a life. The training is for a reason. If we don't follow that training, should you get a pass for not following your training, your policy, your procedures? Sarge, what do you think about that?
You're absolutely right. None of the citizens in the grand jury has went through any police training, police tactics, police academy, any ride-alongs. So whatever you present it with, you're going to go by only with what's told to you. You don't have both sides. You don't know anything about the elements of what a cop should or should not be doing. So if a district attorney, a person who seems to be an authority, is telling you that this was wrong and that was wrong and that was wrong, the grand jury is going to listen to well, you know what? He knows more than we do. So I guess, he's right. The cop was justified. And that's the situation we went into with grand juries. They're not presented all the evidence. They don't know the situation as far as an officer tax is concerned. And it's at a disservice, really, to the people.
Yeah, and let me tell you what this particular investigation, how it ended, right? They had a guy, right, from the training posts. You guys got posts down there, right? We at Department of Criminal Justice
Yes,
Services. You guys
sure
got
do.
your certification. They had a guy from the post come in and explain where officers are trained to shoot at. And I guess the question was the officer shooting in the right direction, or they were shooting at the target that they was trained to shoot at? And I was trying to figure out, like, okay, why does that even matter at the time, right? My question would be, is it a justified shooting? Okay, what is the elements of a justified shooting? Okay, the officer's life is okay. Now I see that, right? The officers stand in front of vehicles. Now, do you guys train officers to stand in front of vehicles? And that would have changed the whole dynamics of the argument. No, we don't train officers because they brought somebody in that explained deadly force. I could explain deadly force, but without the additional information of the tactical approach of how you apprehend somebody fleeing a vehicle, a jury wouldn't know that, damn, this guy didn't even supposed to stand in front of a vehicle like that. Now, do we give him a pass because he did something he ain't supposed to do? Because he just took somebody's life. So, like you say, it needs to be these cases really need to be investigated, and they need to be investigated by somebody who understands the policies, the procedures, the tactics on how officers. Because without you knowing, I can paint a pretty picture about how to justify this. Look, ladies and gentlemen, we're going after a felon. He's selling cocaine and marijuana in the community. The officer approached, he's trying to get away. The officer drew down on him. He told him to get out the car. The subject was about to run the officer over. The officer had no other options but to shoot him, right? To some citizens, that's a justified shooting. But to a bunch of cops who knows training, they go, what the hell is this idiot standing in front of the vehicle for? You see the difference?
Exactly.
You see the difference in that type of testimony to, like, if you got a bunch of cops like, yo, who stands in front of vehicles? Like, that's crazy. Of course he's going to have to shoot him. You understand the argument?
You know, as you was reading, as you was reading the elements of what the prosecutor was saying, I had to keep raising my hands, like, stop. Everything he did was incorrect. Every single thing he did was wrong from beginning to end. It's unreal.
Yeah, and don't you think that has a bearing on the decisions that the grand jury chooses, whether to pass a no bill or not?
Correct. You could paint a picture however you want to paint it. Why you got lawyers? You got the prosecutor, got the defense attorney. They paint a nice glory picture. This guy is guilty. He did it. We saw him, and come to find out, no, he's not guilty. He didn't do it. He wasn't there. Proper investigation wasn't done. You could paint anything however you want to paint it. Doesn't mean it's true. That's the difference.
Yeah. We got another question? Okay, we got another question, and we're about to close it down, but we'll take a few more.
Okay. This is from my Facebook family. Tyron Stoughton. I hope I said that correctly. As a Navy veteran, we used to consistently always use a collection of lessons learned as tools to avoid making the same mistakes as others. Hold on. Oh, sorry about that, guys. How do I see this? I'm getting technical help back here so I can read the full question. How did I go down? His question. I can't see it because
You can only do so many captions.
Well, for my Facebook audience, while she getting that together, I got to go to YouTube and subscribe onto the YouTube channel. We're doing a lot over there. We're going to be doing a lot over to Facebook as well. But please go to the YouTube Police Brutality Matters and subscribe, share, and like. Doing a give back. I'm always giving back. I'm just not one that be on social media and venting about bad policing. I do a lot in the community. I was contacted. Someone reached out to me about the upcoming prom for a high school. I got about 10 students who, it's in a poor community, and they don't have the resources for the suits, the transportation, the shoes. So I definitely want to do a drive to actually see if we can get as many kids to this prom as possible. I do a lot of giveaways in the community. I do back to school. I do feeding the homeless. I do a lot of work within the community. And this is one of the things that I'm real passionate about giving back. So please follow the YouTube page, share, subscribe, and like. We've just been monetized. I really dislike, and I got to get used to this because this is an arena that I'm doing, right? Giving back. I'm not a multimillionaire, so I'm always asking my audience to give donations. We just been monetized on YouTube, so I could take a lot of the YouTube money and give it back into the community, but that's going to require you guys' help when it comes down to subscribing, sharing, and liking videos. So please help out with the give back to the community. You are ready for that question?
It's definitely a good
All right,
question, Joe.
All right, I'm back. Sorry, Tyron Stoughton. All right, as a Navy veteran, we used to consistently always use a collection of lessons learned as tools to avoid making the same mistakes as others. Do Leo departments do the same, or does there seem to be more of a concern about putting their fellow officers on blast and protecting their reputation?
No,
Sarge, you
there
wanna
is
answer that?
definitely constant. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, there's definitely constant training, reviewing case notes, reviewing past videos, what happened, what the do's and don'ts, what went wrong, what went right, what could be done better. We have constant updated training every 3, 6, and 9 months, and we review issues where cops did the right thing and review issues where cops did the wrong thing. Again, the key is, are you applying the training that's been given to you? And a lot of times, most likely not. We're always supposed to review what happened, what we done right, and congratulate once we've done something wrong. And let people know when they did something wrong. But we're constantly reviewing footage, we're constantly reviewing tapes, constantly going into training. The key is, are you using and applying what you learn when you go on these in-services? We all required to go to this in-service, but if you're not using what you're applying what you're learning, it's going to go out the window. So, but answer your question, sir, yes, we are giving training, and the reviews are being done constantly, or supposed to be done constantly.
You know, one of the things that I have a problem with is that I'm all for additional training, but we got to be more accountable to the bad training, because without the accountability and the additional training, I don't think it gives the same impact. The last thing an officer wants to do is get jammed up for bad actions. So if we had the accountability to match the bad actions, I think you would see more officers sticking to the policy, the procedures, and not just thrown into the wayside of, we all heard, oh, leave that in the academy. Now your training starts now. So I think we need to get away from that. We need to start paying attention to the academy, because the academy saves lives and it saves taxpayers for paying out for bad policing.
That's absolutely right. I even had an FTO I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Shane, go ahead.
I had an FTO a long time ago. I'm sorry. Yeah, we had an FTO a long time ago who said, "What everything you learn in the academy, forget about this. Now you're in the real world." And I was like, "What? Are you serious? All this training I went through, forget about the academy, and now I'm in the real world?" And you can see he didn't last very long, but you can see his tactics and what he did. It wasn't what we learned in the academy. So you do have some officers like that.
Yeah, you have a lot of officers like that, and it's crazy that I was policing in several states away from you, and I've heard the same thing. As soon as I got the academy, the guy said, "Yo, don't get me killed with that academy crap. Leave what you know and leave what you learned in the academy, and your training starts from now." And then when I went over to Afghanistan, and I told you before, I went over 119 instructors, I've asked that question. Everybody in the room say, "Yeah, that's pretty universal. Leave what you know in the academy, and it's a different style of policing and training on the streets." And now that I realize why. I realize why that the taxpayers is footing out a billions and billions of dollars for bad policing, because officers they're not following the academy.
Correct. Absolutely correct.
Next question.
Yes, 1 second. All right, so let me go to the next question. All right. Everybody's saying they are good cops, so it's like a back and forth.
There are good cops. Yes, it's plenty good cops. The problem is it's
You're talking
overshadowed
to
by
two
the
of them
bad.
now.
Yeah.
And you know, there's a lot of good cops, but it's overshadowed by the bad. But the good cops are doing the job that they signed up to do. They're just following. The difference is they're following the policy and procedures and the Constitution, and the bad ones are not. And then they overshadow, just like in the black community. You know, people think that, you know, you start talking about black on black crime and it being an epidemic and everybody's from Chicago. Like, come on, like that. It does not make a lot of sense when you narrow down to the actual numbers. But yeah, I really honestly believe that there is way more good police than it is bad. But we haven't figured out how to deal with the bad ones.
All right. I have another question from
Yeah.
Facebook, Ty Ron Staunton. With the experience you both have, what do you both believe can be done to create cultures within law enforcement departments in which officers overtly hold each other accountable? At least from the citizen's perspective, it appears some officers come across as hypocrites, as, oh my God, this is long. Okay, hold on.
Well, for the first part of her
But
question, until she figures it out, I think one of the main solutions, and I'm glad because I always try to have solutions to all these problems. I think accountability is the key factor to fixing all these problems. Like the Sarge said, these guys are not following what they're trained to do. If you look at the entry level exams to get out of the academy or the academy testing, these guys know better. You had to pass these exams to actually get out of the academy, right? So if you look at their academy test saying, yeah, I know better. I know this is the Fourth Amendment violation. I know what the elements are. But when you see their actions, it's not consistent because you got guys that was training them when they came out said, forget what you forget on the academy, and the street training starts now. The street training ain't consistent with academy training. It's not consistent with taxpayers' dollars being spent. So you see the problem, you put accountability, and you can easily start feeling the grip, the shift change. And I think it's Atlanta PD just recently came up with a fail to intervene policy, which I think is an amazing policy. What that does is that when you see the officer being bad or you see an officer doing bad things, bad police work, if there's officers standing around, they're saying that all the officers standing around now are all going to be held accountable. In the past, you would just see that one officer be held accountable. They're saying now, like, listen, if you stand around and you see it's wrong, then you better stop it. Because if not, then you're going to be held responsible. That's why I just not shortly, like maybe a month or two ago, it was on social media where you see the female officer. She went in and grabbed the officer because the guy was in cuffs, and the officer turned around and started choking her because she's like, I'm not getting hemmed up because you out here acting crazy. You know, the officer got suspended. I believe he got terminated as well, but I know he got suspended. And the chief came out and said she did exactly what she's supposed to have done. That failing to intervene policy puts a lot more people accountable and in the hot seat. So I'm telling you, accountability is the key factor to changing this narrative.
I'm going to finish
yeah,
reading.
Joe, I got to agree with you. Also, accountability, and then some of the culture has to change also, because many times before, as a good cop, and you let them know that, hey, this cop didn't do something correctly. Now all of a sudden, IA, internal investigation, is targeting you. So that culture has to change too. If you come forward and step forward and say, hey, this guy did something wrong, and this is what we need to do, we need to have the backup to support that. And many times, as they say, that thin blue line, no one's going to step across it. And the moment you step across it, you're outed, so to speak. So in order, in harmony with accountability, the culture from inside has to change, where we're not going to protect you. We're not going to hear the back, you do something wrong, you're accountable. Remember, all the way law enforcement officers, we still got to follow the Constitution. If we break the law, we need to be arrested also. That's the difference.
100%. I agree with that. You want to finish the other half of her question?
Yes, that's him.
Oh, I'm sorry about that, Marie. I'm sorry.
No. She wasn't even ready to. So you're good. You're good.
Sorry, I'm trying to multitask here. All right. So the end of the question, at least from the citizen's perspective, it appears as some officers come across as hypocrites, as officers want the community to offer information to assist officers and catch criminals, but these officers don't often seem as forthcoming when their fellow officers are the ones not following policy or breaking the law.
100%. I agree with that statement 100% because I remember times where we work in homicides and people are like, I'm not touching, I'm not, there's no way I'm ratting because next thing you know, they're going to be here on me. And I heard other officers, yeah, you really care about your community, huh? And then I turn around and say, well, why you ain't saying nothing about such and such who was arrested? You worked with him. And he's like, yeah, I don't want to be a rat. Okay, can you see the same mindset? You can't understand that when the community says, I'm not snitching, but you understand it when it's one of your
You ain't
own
snitching either.
and you're not saying anything. What you say?
Yeah, that's right. I said as a cop, they ain't snitching either. They're talking about the community.
Right.
We're the first
Right,
ones
exactly.
to say anything.
Exactly. And I think we touched on that earlier. Accountability. Once you start holding officers accountable, you could break that blue wall of silence in a heartbeat. If an officer knows that he's going to get hemmed up for standing there watching somebody get tuned up in handcuffs, I guarantee you'll change that. I'm 100% sure you'll change that.
That's right. That's right.
All right.
Totally agree.
So there's a lot of questions. I'm going to skim through some. Constitutional auditor says he has a video for you, Joseph.
Mm-hmm.
So you could email that to us, constitutional auditor. Tyron, it's cool. He said, sorry for the long questions. I appreciate you all taking time to answer. This type of dialogue with the community is needed.
Oh, it's definitely needed
Right.
because
So true.
the community doesn't understand. Community don't know, and I think they have a right to know. They're paying the salaries, they're paying the huge payouts. They should have access to understanding that the people who sign up to do public service, what kind of job they're doing. I was always a fan of that. I was always like, I remember when I had to use force on somebody. I was arrested. He had a warrant, and he's like, "I'm not going to justice you, dude. You come on, dude. You gotta. It's going to be hard or it's going to be easy. You're going to jail one way or another." And he swung. I grabbed him and arm brought him to the ground, and it was kind of hard. Boom. I was able to get his arm behind, and he's like, all right. He put the other arm, and I cuffed him. I had another officer run up to me. He was like, they video recording. They chill. I said, yo, dude, what I just did, you can find in the manual. I just put a class on how to actually put cuffs on somebody who was putting up a resistance. And so I was like, I have no problem. I wish they would come to me, IA, come to me. I'm gonna just bring the manual saying, this is what you trained me to do. See this right here? When the subject is putting up a fight, a resistance, you said I can use this, I can do that. I'm all for being transparent. That cameras never bothered me. And it just bothers me to hear officers turn off their cam. Yo, that can save you because people will lie on you. Keep them cameras going, especially you following protocol procedures. Like an old timer once told me, he says, if you follow that, just give them the manual and say, you want to see how I operate? Here you go. I guarantee if you look at this manual, look at my actions, it's very consistent.
That's right. I totally agree with you. I remember, Joe, we were growing up, there's a show called Smile. You on Candid Camera. That camera saves you. Put me in the camera. Zoom in on me. I want you to see everything I'm doing. And I believe that if more officers had their cameras on, didn't turn them off, the truth will come out. And if you're doing things right, you should be okay.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. William Maybon, I hope I said that right, on YouTube. How do you remove the gun-ho attitude out of policing?
Once again, somebody like that will have a history of excessive force. When you look at just look at this, pick an officer. We could pick the officer who murdered Derek, right? What's his name? Chauvin, right? A history, red flags all over the place. Red flags, excessive force. We could pick another officer, Pantaleo, who choked out Eric Gardner. Taxpayers already paid out thousands of dollars because of incidents like that. The person just didn't die. He went up somebody's rectum to grab what he believed was drugs. And it was a lot of red flags. These guys don't just pop up and then all of a sudden, we see them on the media doing something crazy. These guys normally have a history of bad behavior. So the department knows who they are.
Okay.
Exactly.
Oh, does Shane want to say something? I'm
Shane,
sorry,
you got
Shane.
something to add to that?
No, I'm totally agreement. Absolutely right. You have a history. You start doing wrong conduct and wrong things, your record builds up. And once you start doing something wrong and continue doing it, that follows you. So it's no surprise when you see these officers, doing these things. They had a history of doing it, but it needs to be checked and stopped immediately.
Yeah, just like Loman, who killed Tamir Rice. It was crazy. It's his evaluations prior to that was like, yo, this guy is he does not follow procedures. He's going to end up killing somebody. He had an evaluation that said he's going to end up killing somebody. Instead of somebody in brass saying, hold on, we got to look at this guy. Like, look at his evaluation. This is crazy. Why is he still on the street? They just let him slide. They just kept him through. And what he did, he ended up killing somebody. Like there are signs when you start talking about bad policing. It just don't happen overnight. Look at these officers. Look at all the high-profile cases. Look at these officers' past. You know how they like to look at a subject's past? Oh, he had this many arrests. Look at an officer's past. It tells a story, and that's all they got to do. Like departments know that.
All right,
Exactly.
we have a question from Ron7313 on YouTube. Legislators, see, Dave be wanting me to click stuff and be messing me up. Dave is our tech guy. He back here.
He training.
Thomas is showing up, bro.
You know, I'm gonna try. All right, legislators are trying to pass bills for limiting filming police for transparency. How do we stop them from violating our First Amendment rights?
You, the people, have all the power in the world, and I can't say it enough. You elect these people to come in. Y'all flood these offices of the elected officials and say, look, why y'all, what are you supporting that bill for? This is how we, the people, want our public servants. We want them cammed up. We want to make sure that they're doing the job they're supposed to. You elect them to represent you. Don't make it look like it's separate. Don't make it look like, well, this is what the legislators are doing. They work for you, the people. Flood their offices. Let them know that, yo, you back a bill like that, then we're going to have problems.
All right, last question for the evening, guys.
Why you ain't let Shane speak?
Oh, I'm sorry, Shane. Go ahead, Shane. Shane be like,
No, no, it's all good. It's all good. The power is with the people. It's always been that way. Your power is in your vote, who you choose. You know, that's why these councilman meetings are together. You need to have group rallies. You need to have. You need to talk to your senators, talk to your councilmen. You guys can make the change. You guys have the power. We can't do it individually. It takes everybody. Remember, team, together, everyone achieves more. It sounds like a cliche, but it's so true. All of us need to be involved in this.
oh, that was cute.
Yeah, I learned
I
something.
know the team thing, right?
Like, oh, wow.
All right, guys, this is the last question for the evening. This is from Tall Paul Photography on YouTube. And the question is, so what is the solution, gentlemen?
Go ahead, Sarge.
The solution is to stick to the police academy training. And when you do not stick to the training, to be held accountable. And also, I guess maybe reward officers for doing their job. Sad to say, but I think there's some incentive needs to be done. Hey, you did something wrong, bring it to light, hey, and get rewarded for it. You got to be held accountable.
I say that time and time again, and this is a guy who ran for vice president and won. So I got the opportunity to see a lot of write-ups. I got the opportunity to see how a department can actually target individuals and give passes to the other individuals for the same violation. But one thing that will take care of both problems is accountability. If, I hear time and time again they say, oh, that's bad training. I haven't seen one time where someone said that and go, well, yeah, that is bad training. But what I do see is that's not training. That doesn't represent training. Look at the video that we was talking about. I look at that and go, that's not bad training. That's just an officer who's not following his training. But you guys who don't understand law enforcement, understand tactics, don't understand positioning, right? Y'all just see a what so-called suspect running from the police and is trying to get away and gets murdered. But you don't see the other end of the people who are trained to apprehend these people to bring them in safely. If they're not following it, then you're going to have incidents like that. So accountability is so important. People, and I really do enjoy the support that people give police officers, because sometimes the job can get complex. You go from delivering a baby to running into a house to pull somebody out that's in a fire to chasing down bad guys. So these are public servants who signed up the job to serve the community. But the ones that abuse that authority do not need to be on that job. I hear time and time again, we just got to support them. Yeah, support law enforcement. But when it comes down to the bad ones, we need to read them. We need to get them out of there. And the way to do that is accountability, people, 100%.
All right, big shout out to Damon Hogan. He just donated $5. Thank you so much, Damon. Damon says, Joe, thanks for all you do. Unfortunately, we'll need a channel like yours. Keep it up.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. I really do. Because sometimes, man, with the exception of like my boy Shane, who's a sergeant who's always spoke out for the community, understand the problems, and wasn't never biased about being vocal about it. You got a lot of people out here who wore that uniform, but, I even have cops tell me, I'm a little biased because the brotherhood, we look out for each other, take care of each other. You got to be taking care of the community as well. People are forgetting that main concept, taking care of the community, taking care of the people in that community. So when you got some bad, insecure, someone who took the job because they got beat up in school all the time, when you got that person that's working, you got to find a way to get him out of there. You got to, because he's hurting it for everybody who wears the uniform, who tries to do the right thing. It's real complex. It really is. But with this approach, with us being transparent and explaining to the community, it's okay to support the good guys, but condemn them bad ones. Don't never be ashamed. They're going to call you anti-police. They're going to call you because that's what they want. They want either you support all of us or you support none of us. And you got to change that mindset. You got to say, look, I know how to support the good ones, but the bad ones I'm going to condemn. So with that said, man, we're going to change the game. We definitely is. Thanks, Shane. I appreciate that, right? Shane?
Can't hear Shane.
Our goal is to serve and protect. That's the goal. I totally agree with you, Joe. We need to do more of that. That's all it is. Serve and protect, out the bad ones, and take care of the good ones, and build a stronger police force, a good police force.
Yeah, so people, I appreciate the support. I appreciate the love that you're giving. Like I said before, please continue to support the platform, donate. We got about a month to see how much we can get together. And I really want to send these kids. It's sad that, we in America, right? And you got high school kids that can't afford a suit, can't afford transportation, shoes to a prom, not to, kind of trash other about America's problems, but we're sending a lot of money overseas to other countries to help with their problems. I'm like, what about the problems here right now? Like a high school kid should have that experience. He should be able to feel good about himself, get a haircut, get a suit, put some shoes on, get the limousine. That's an experience that you only have once in your life in high school. And so please help bless these children when it comes down to this. Let's get them to that prom. Let's get them to that prom, right? Marie, can you put the donation, put a Cash App up to see who can actually help. We're continually going to do this drive to try to get as many kids as possible. But with you guys' help, I'm confident that just like the food drive, we had a mission to feed 50 kids. 50 homeless, and we end up feeding 1,000. Like it was a beautiful. When I tell you, it was a beautiful food drive. We had a lot of food. It was more than what our goal was, but I was just appreciative of you guys with your support.
Joseph,
what?
1,000? You meant we had 1,000.
We had, you know how
over
many spots?
$1,000. Yeah,
You know
I
how many
know.
spots we went to?
100, a
We
couple
went to
hundred.
so many different
I
spots. Okay,
know.
a few hundred. all right?
Yes, thank
There's
you.
a few. We went to we spent how many? It was like 5 different locations
Yeah,
that
2
we
days.
It was like 2
It
days
was.
worth of work, 5 different locations. It felt, when I tell you, it felt like 1,000 people. I was just happy just to be feeding people who needed food. It was beautiful.
All right, so we're gonna close out.
Yeah, we're gonna close it out. Like always, like I say, when you have an encounter with the police, I understand the environment that we're in. There's a lot of tension going on. Don't automatically just come off hard and just be angry. You got a lot of good guys out here that's getting a lot of grunt that because of the bad officers out here. A bad officer will reveal himself real quick, real fast. I'm all about respect. Respect each other as human beings. Later for you wear a uniform. Later for that you have a badge and a gun on. It has nothing to do. I grew up in an environment, a poor environment, so respect level was big. You get into a fight easy to be being disrespected. So I kind of carried that thought my whole life. I'm going to respect you. You respect me. Even during that job, when people were disrespectful, I still maintained the high professionalism that job required me to have. But just as individuals, let's respect each other. And if you come across a bad cop, your job is to make it home. Please don't be a hashtag. Stand up and fight for what you believe in, but don't push that envelope so bad that you know that this officer is going to be so insecure, he's going to end up shooting and killing you. And next thing you know, we're going to be on live talking about how wrong the officer was. Your job is to make it home. More officers are getting terminated, suspended, charged, convicted. I mean, we still have a long way to go, but we are making some progress. Make it home tonight. All right, people? I love you guys, and I'll see you next Sunday.